Hi everyone, my name is Caden Foley. I've been showing cats for about 8 years and I'm your state ambassador from Lynn County. This is Dexter. He's a 6-month-old domestic American short-hair tabby. And today we're going to talk to you about showing your cat for the first time. Alright, so what to expect when you're showing your cat. When you get to the show, you are going to be with potentially other cats on the table, depending on how many are in your class. You're going to need to know some basic knowledge of your cat. You're going to want your cat groomed, and you're going to want them on a harness for the show. And alright, so when you're deciding what cat you want to show at fair, it is ideal that they are 6 months of age because it's a state rule that they have to be updated on all of their vaccines, and it is just easier on the cat when they are a little bit older. And so a general rule of thumb is about 6 months of age. You do not have to have a purebred pedigreed cat because in reality most cats are just random barn cats or strays or wherever else people are finding these cats, and you don't have to spend all that money on a purebred cat just to show in 4-H. Me personally, my cat was just a random stray in a litter that we found, and then I've gotten to show him for a while. Alright, so when you get started, you're going to need a couple of different pieces of equipment. To start off, you're going to absolutely want a crate that they are comfortable in and that is the appropriate size for them, that they can be transported to and from your meetings, any other shows, and fair. Another thing you're going to want when you're getting started with showing your cat is you're going to want a cat harness. These harnesses are designed so that they can't slip their shoulders out of it, which is why you want a harness specifically designed for cats and not a dog harness. Another thing you're going to want is you're going to want some kind of leash. I highly recommend a short leash, really no longer than 2 feet at most. We get these from one of the vendors at some of the big dog shows in the area, but you can also use Amazon, which is where most people are also going to get their harnesses. You are also going to want nail clippers because nail clipping is super important, especially with cats, because cats are can be very temperamental. And so this is not only a safety thing, but it's also a health and hygiene thing. When you're harness training them for the show, you ideally want to start as soon as possible and as young as possible, because then it gets them used to going through the motions of having the harness on and taking it on and off, and then it just gets them used to it. And at first they might pull and they might tug and try to get out of it because that's what cats do, but eventually they're going to get used to it. You're going to get used to putting it on and taking it off of them, and it'll just be a better experience for everyone if you start early. Another thing you're going to want is a carpet square. If you have a darker cat, you're going to want a lighter carpet square, and you're also going to want to dress in lighter colors. If you have a lighter cat, you're going to want a darker carpet square, and you're going to want to dress ideally in a darker color so that your cat stands out against the backdrop of you and the carpet square on the table. Another thing about cats, and where it differs from other small animal projects, is that you don't really have to groom them. Cats are very good at cleaning themselves. You don't really want to bathe them because it could potentially lead to dry skin and dander that you just don't want because it doesn't look very good on the cat. When I show my cat, we typically bathe them about 2 weeks before fair, just in case they have any dirt or grime on them that they haven't gotten off themselves. It just helps us feel that our cats are in the best condition they possibly can be. You may or may not need to do some brushing with your short hair cats. With your long hair cats, you're going to want to brush them about once a week, just in case there is any big tangles that they can't get out that could potentially form into mats. Another thing that you will absolutely want when you're prepping for the show is you'll want to train yourself with knowledge. I highly recommend using the Oregon State Cat Advancement Program. This is a very, very useful resource. Some of the topics in here I highly recommend doing research on because 90% of the time the judge will ask you at least something on a topic in this. Other states also have different resource books that you can get. I know in particular Idaho has a really good one that they have been working on updating, and there are other states that have those as well. When you're getting ready to take your cat to the show and you want to have them up to date on all of their vaccines and be parasite free, this includes fleas, ticks, and mites. With proving those vaccines, it really all depends on your extension office. Here in Linn County, we have to submit our vaccine records about a week before fair, and then they double check those records when we come on the day of the show. While you are moving in the building and at fair, harnesses are required because it is a lot easier to catch a cat with a harness and a leash on than it is to catch a unharnessed cat that is running through the building. All right, now it's finally time for you to show your cat. You will usually get called when your class is up next and about to go on the table. You'll want to carry your cat in the safety carry, where you secure their back legs and their bum, and then you have their front legs under control in your hand, and you usually want to have a free hand so you can carry your carpet square up to the table, and then you're going to set your carpet square down, and then you'll wait for the judge, and the judge will usually tell you to put your cat down on the table, and then you can pose them. Usually your cat will just do whatever they want because they're cats. You also want to make sure that your leash is up on your arm, not your wrist or in your hand, because that is a safety thing for your cat, because if they get out and jump off the table, there is a good chance that if you don't have your leash secured, you probably will never get them back. Now it's time for the individual evaluation of you and your cat. So the judge will most likely come up to you and tell you, show me your cat. You want to start by showing your cat's four sides, and you want to do it slowly so that you don't make your cat throw up all over the show table. And you don't really want your arms to cross. So when I'm showing the side of my cat that is closest to me, I'm going to turn my body from the judge so that they can see the backside of the cat. And then you're going to put them down on the table, and then you're going to start with the health check going from nose to tail. All right, so you're going to start with showing the judge your cat's head shape. Cats will either have a triangle head or a rounded head. Dexter has more of a pointed round head. And then you're going to want to move to the nose, and you're going to just check for any discharge and boogers that shouldn't be there. And then you're going to move to the eyes, and you're going to want to open the eye, check for clarity, and then you're also going to want to push back on the side of the eye to expose the third eyelid and make sure that there is no damage in case they got into a fight. And it's also just a general part of the health check. And you're going to do that with both eyes to make sure that they're all clear. There we go. Next, you're going to move on to the ears. You're going to check for any waxy buildup or mites. You need your ears cleaned. And then You're going to move on to the claws. You're going to show one of the front paws. It doesn't really matter which one. And then you're going to show the opposite back paw. Even though you're only showing 2 of your cat's feet, it is very important that you trim all 4 feet, because the judge could ask to see the other feet, and it is also just a health and safety concern for you and your cat. Next, we're going to move down the cat's body, feeling for any lumps and bumps along the body, and then we're going to run our hand over our cat and go to the end of the tail to make sure there are no vertebrates out of line, and then we're going to go back to look at their coat. They might not like this, but it's very important because you can also check for fleas, lice, mites, and ticks. And then you're just going to run your hand back, over, and then you're going to say, this concludes the health check. And then this is where the judge will move into the question portion of your individual examination. When you get to the knowledge portion of your individual examination, the judge can ask you a variety of different things. Some of the things they are pretty much always going to ask you is what you feed your cat and why. This is a very open-ended question because it can be really anything. It can be because of all the benefits of this, or it can be as simple as we feed them this because it's what we can afford. Another very common question is just a brief history and just describing your cat and your breed. So like I said, Dexter is a domestic American Shorthair, which is the pretty standard breed for short-hair cats, especially in America. And the orange tabby coloring is one of the many different colors that you can find American Shorthairs in. Another thing the judge is going to ask you is your vaccines. You should know these because they are on your health records that you have to turn in to your county office and the state office to be able to show. After the judge is done with your individual examination, they're going to say something along the lines of, "Thank you, please stay on the table with your cat." And then you are expected to keep your cat relatively under control. You don't have to pose them, but you should always be looking or at least glancing at your judge to follow where they are. They are going to move down the rest of the show table to the other cats in your class if there are any. And then if it is a very challenging class for them to place and decide who is champion and reserve, then they might come down the line again and ask some more challenging questions, but still answerable questions. After the judge has asked their final questions to you and the rest of your class, they'll typically move on to placing the class. Usually they will do it at the table and they will start usually with the lowest ribbon first. It is not very common, but there are some whites given, and then they move up to red and blue, and then finally they place the champion and reserve champion. The more cats in your class, the longer this is going to take. After the judge dismisses you from the table, you're going to want to safety carry your cat back to their cage, and you're going to want to grab their carpet square. Of course, after your parents or guardians or whoever gets all the pictures, because let's be real, that's what they're going to want to do. And then if you are in a county that does callbacks and grand champion and cross-age showmanship, then you will await instructions from your superintendents and your judge and your steward for that grand showman class. All right, so some final tips and tricks that I have learned over the many years of showing my cat is you always want to have a lint roller handy somewhere that you know where it is, because as you can see, you will get cat hair everywhere. And it just makes you look more professional if you are in your nice dress clothes and they're cat hair free. Another thing as far as dress goes, you want to have simple but dressy clothes. So no big belt buckles or rings or any jewelry, because that could potentially distract the cat, and then that turns into a safety issue for not only you and your cat, but the other cats on the table. One thing that I absolutely wish I knew when I started showing cats was how temperamental cats can be. You can handle your cat so much and have them around all kinds of other cats, but then come fair day, they're an absolute nightmare on the table. Because fair is a very stressful situation. It's a long day, it's hot, it's the middle of the summer, and unless your cat is very well behaved and loves doing it, they probably don't want to be there and would rather be lounging somewhere else. That is just one thing that I absolutely wish I learned way earlier than I did, because it could have saved so much. Another tip that you'll absolutely want to know is you want to make sure that your carpet square is the appropriate size for your cat. This carpet square is probably right at the perfect size for Dexter. If you have a giant cat like a Maine Coon or another one of those very large breeds, you'll want a carpet square that is probably about twice this size, because it just looks better when your cat fits on your carpet square, and it gives the judge a better perspective of you and your cat. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, reach out to your local extension office for any additional resources, specific rules for your county, and any other extra little resources that your office might have. And remember to have fun with your cat. It'll be so much more fun for you if you just relax and enjoy the time with your cat.